Um, Another big thing, and I've been given a bit of advice to a business this week about this very, very thing. When you take on a business, it can be, it's like your baby. You know, you want to nurture it, you want to look after it, you want to see it grow, you want to see it prosper, you want to see it have a great future. So it's very much like having, a child, and people get very attached and connected to it. So the thought of delegating some of that tasks, or some of the important roles that are within a business, it can feel like they're giving away their child to someone else to trust, and that can be hard for a lot of business owners, especially if they've worked so diligently to get it to this point. And then probably the hidden thing, the last thing that's a mindset trap here that I think is one of the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous and it's the most hidden, believe it or not. Because whenever I speak to any business, I'm like, right, where do you want to go? And the big trap that they have, where you're working hard and not smart, is they don't have clarity in where they're going. They don't know why they're doing things, or they do things on a reactive basis. So nothing grows and develops because they're not creating new horizons, they've not got a goal, they've not got a destination that they'd like to get to. It's just this sort of swarming heap of activity that they just respond to it as it comes in and flows. So you need to know where you need to know what you're doing, you need to know where you're going, you need to know what it looks like when you get there. You need to be able to imagine what you would see if you were, if you had the perfect business. You'd need to hear the things that you'd be hearing. You would need to feel how good it would feel if you were actually smashing it out of the park and this business was where you thought it could get to. And with that, you need to have a vision. You need to have a clear idea in your mind where you're going. So if you think of any of these things, then you might potentially be working hard and not smart. And so why does this happen? Well, it happens because you've not put any systems in place. You've not got any structure. So lack of structure and lack of systems or priorities means that you end up dealing with things and you treat everything as the same priority. So nothing actually gets done in the order that needs to get done. So the way that things are done in order makes a difference. Like, so for instance, if you were, if you were wanting to make a cake and you decided to keep all the ingredients in the packets and then put them in the tray and then stick them in the oven, you're not going to get a cake. There's an order in which you need to do things. You need to mix the cake mix up. You need to break the eggs. You need to make sure none of the shells fall into it. You need to swirl it all up. You need to get it to the right consistency. You need to add the right ingredients in the right way and the right measurements. So things need to be done in a particular way. And if you don't have priorities and you don't have a system in which you're operating towards, you end up, you can have all the right ingredients, but just not do them in the right order, and you're not going to get the cake at the end of it. It's not going to create the thing that you're looking for. So this is a sign that some structure and framework to work towards, where you have clear priorities and a clear objective, that can determine how you can take the action in the right ways. And one of the big things that can happen is that you're stuck in this worker mindset. So you just think work. Where if you're a business owner, you need to do more than work. You need to, observe, analyze what's going on. You need to think of the problem. You need to think of the solution. You need to think about what that solution the outcome of that, what you want it to look like. So it's these things where you're like, hey, look, if this sounds like you, then it's showing you that working hard just isn't always the answer. Sometimes you've got to take the information that you have and think, hey, can I do this a little bit better? So, like, what does working smart mean? Working smart means that you're starting to leverage the tools that are available to you. So things like software systems, AI, using automations, things that can take a lot of the chunky sort of menial tasks that they're low impact but do need to be done. But you can get an automation that actually takes that process out of your hands. Things like automating payments, automating payment collection, automating accounts, automating your schedule, like your content. Having just a basic structure can make the world of difference. And this is the thing, when you set aside time to actually have your priorities in order. So the big thing that can make a shift is you actually start to shift your priority. And what that means is you have low impact tasks that don't really make that much of a difference to the bottom line. So things like, taking out the bins, is the paper loaded into the paper tray? Did you order post-it notes? All that sort of stuff. Versus high impact things like, are you getting your name out there? Are you, have you got your scheduling created for your content? Are you making new connections in the industries that you want to do business in? Have you created an offer that can attract new clients and customers? And have you got all that sort of dialed in where you're leveraging your skills, you're using these templates to get a result? The other thing you can do is when you have templates, like one of the things that we've just done in one of the businesses that I'm involved with is you can create templates to leverage your expertise. And what that does is it automates the process. If someone has got a question, you can then automate that answer because the template will know that, hey, look, this is the answer that needs to be given here. Like, I'll give you an example. So say, for instance, someone says, how do you work out the percentage of, mortgage availability in a buy-to-let? And I would say, well, the answer is based on current buy-to-let lending values, and that currently today is 75%. So if you were to put that question and the template could answer it, it means that you're not dealing with those types of things. Another instance might be, a guest puts in a message and says, hey, look, is there parking at your property? And then the system can say, hey, here's the property address. What have you got in there? Yes, parking's located, in the two car bays at the front of the property. Here's the numbers of the bays, so you can use either of them. That's a system that you can put in place. And what it means is you're not spending hours and hours and hours on tasks that you don't really need to. And you can actually start to free and unshackle yourself. So that's a good sign that you're probably working quite smart. And when you start to look at things that streamline your process, the idea is you're becoming more efficient. And when you become more efficient, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself the room to take workload off you, to become more creative, to make those connections, to expand your business, which is ultimately the thing that actually makes the difference to growth.